The silence came first, then the alarms. Commander Jai-Ho Park jolted awake in his quarters on Europa Mining Station E12. The emergency lights bathed everything in a harsh red glow. His communication panel flashed urgently. "Commander, unidentified vessels approaching." The voice of Security Officer Yoon crackled through the speaker. "They're not responding to hails." Jai-Ho rushed to the command center, still pulling on his uniform jacket. The station's night crew huddled around the main display, faces pale in the screen's blue light. "Status report," Jai-Ho demanded, taking his position. "3 vessels, unknown configuration," Yoon reported. "They dropped out of faster-than-light travel 20 minutes ago and have been on direct approach since. No response to communications." Jai-Ho studied the screen. The ships were unlike anything in human records, sleek, with curves that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with precision that suggested advanced propulsion systems. "Raise shields," Jai-Ho ordered. "Sir, our mining station only has basic defensive screens," reminded Chief Engineer Sunmai. "They're designed for meteor protection, not military engagement." Jai-Ho knew she was right. Europa Station E12 was a civilian operation. Its 200 workers extracted water ice and rare minerals from Jupiter's moon. They had no weapons, no military-grade shields, and no combat training. "Send emergency signals to Earth and the Mars Defense Fleet," Jai-Ho said. "Prepare evacuation protocols." The first blast came without warning. The entire station shuddered. Support beams groaned. Several consoles exploded in showers of sparks. Direct hit on Dome 3. Someone shouted, "Breach detected." Jai-Ho grabbed the station-wide communication system. "All personnel, this is Commander Park. Proceed to emergency shuttles immediately. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." The second blast hit harder than the first. Jai-Ho was thrown across the command center. Through the viewport, he saw one of the habitat domes crumple like tissue paper. The station's artificial gravity fluctuated, sending loose objects floating momentarily before crashing back down. "Who are they?" Jai-Ho demanded, pulling himself up using a console edge. "Why are they attacking us?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Han, the station's xenobiologist, limped into the command center, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. "They're Tamak," she said, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "We made first contact with their scout ship 3 months ago. The diplomatic corps has been in preliminary talks since then." Jai-Ho remembered the reports now. The Tamak were one of the first intelligent alien species humanity had encountered since venturing beyond the solar system. The initial meetings had seemed promising. "Why would they attack us?" Jai-Ho asked, helping a technician whose arm hung at an unnatural angle. "I don't know," Dr. Han replied. There was nothing in their behavior that suggested hostility. Another blast rocked the station. The lights flickered and died, leaving only emergency illumination. "Evacuation status," Jai-Ho called out. "Shuttle Bay 1 is compromised," Yoon reported. "Shuttle Bay 2 still operational. Approximately 60% of personnel accounted for and moving toward evacuation points." Jai-Ho made a quick decision. "Dr. Han, take command of the evacuation. Get as many people out as possible. Yoon, download the station logs and sensor data. I want records of everything that's happening." "What about you, sir?" Sunmai asked. "I'm going to Dome 4. There's a research team trapped there after the connecting corridor collapsed." Jai-Ho grabbed an emergency kit and environment suit. Europa's surface had no atmosphere and temperatures hovered around -160 degrees Celsius. If the dome was breached, the researchers would be dead without suits. He fought his way through the station's damaged corridors. Twice he had to detour around collapsed sections. The station's automated systems were failing. Life support was at minimal levels, and fire suppression systems sprayed randomly from damaged pipes. When Jai-Ho reached Dome 4, he found the researchers already in environment suits, huddled behind an equipment barricade. "Dr. Minji," The team lead rushed to meet him. "Commander, we thought everyone had left." "We're evacuating now," Jai-Ho explained, helping the young researcher with a damaged suit seal. "We have to go across the surface to reach Shuttle Bay 2. Through the dome's transparent sections, they could see the alien ships hovering over the station. Their hulls seemed to shift colors like oil on water. Occasional energy beams lanced down, methodically destroying section after section. "They're not just attacking," Dr. Minji observed. "They're studying how we built the station. Look at the pattern." She was right. The aliens were systematically targeting structural weaknesses, analyzing how the station collapsed under different types of assault. "They're gathering tactical data," Jai-Ho realized with horror. "This isn't just an attack. It's research." The group of 6 made their way to an airlock. Jai-Ho checked everyone's suit integrity before cycling the chamber. They stepped out onto Europa's icy surface. The view was terrifying and magnificent. Jupiter loomed enormous in the black sky. The alien ships hung above the disintegrating station like predatory birds. In the distance, several emergency shuttles were already launching, small bright specks against the darkness. "Stay low and move quickly," Jai-Ho instructed. "The ice will give us some cover from their sensors." They trudged across the moon's surface, the low gravity making their movements bouncy despite their attempts to stay grounded. Every few minutes, Jai-Ho would look back to see another section of the station collapse or explode. When they neared Shuttle Bay 2, Jai-Ho's heart sank. An alien beam had just sliced through the main doors. Air and debris vented violently into space. "There's still Shuttle Bay 3, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "It's smaller, but should have at least one vessel." They changed direction, making their way around the station's perimeter. Jai-Ho's suit radio crackled with desperate communications from other survivors. Shuttle Bay 3 was intact when they arrived. Inside, they found Chief Engineer Sun Mei preparing the last shuttle. "Commander, I thought you were dead." She embraced him despite their bulky suits. "How many got away?" Jai-Ho asked. "Maybe half the station personnel," Sun Mai answered grimly. "This is the last shuttle." They loaded quickly. The small vessel was designed for 12 people, but 23 survivors crammed inside. Jai-Ho took the pilot's seat, with Sun Mai as co-pilot. "Activating stealth systems," Sun Mai announced, flipping switches. "It's not much, but it might hide us from their sensors long enough to get some distance." Jai-Ho launched the shuttle, keeping close to Europa's surface before angling away from both the moon and the alien ships. As they pulled away, his co-pilot patched into a secure communication channel. "This is Europa Station E-12 emergency shuttle, requesting immediate assistance. We are under attack by alien forces identified as Tamak." Only static answered. "Try the emergency frequencies," Jai-Ho suggested. Sun Mai switched channels. More static, then broken fragments of transmissions. "Under attack. No warning. Ganymede colony has fallen. All ships respond to." Jai-Ho and Sun Mai exchanged horrified glances. "It's not just us," Sun Mai whispered. "They're attacking everywhere." As their shuttle accelerated toward the darker regions of space where they might hide, Jai-Ho activated the ship's data recorders. He spoke clearly for the log. "This is Commander Jai-Ho Park of Europa Mining Station E-12. At approximately 300 Earth Standard Time, we were attacked without provocation by vessels of the Tamak species. We have survivors and visual evidence of the attack. The assault appears to be part of a coordinated strike against multiple human outposts." He paused, watching as Jupiter grew smaller behind them. "Humanity needs to know what happened here. And the Tamak need to learn that humanity is not to be provoked." The emergency meeting of the unified Earth government filled the Grand Chamber in Geneva with tense voices. Representatives from every nation and colony sat beneath the ancient dome, their faces drawn with worry and rage. 4 weeks had passed since the Tamak attacks. 4 weeks of mourning, of burying the dead, of counting losses. Admiral Hae-Nul Kim walked slowly to the central podium. At 62, she carried herself with the straight-backed posture of someone who had spent 4 decades in space. Her silver hair was cut in a practical bob, and her dark eyes missed nothing. Behind her, holographic displays activated. They showed the devastation across the solar system. Europa Station reduced to floating debris, the Ganymede colony a smoking crater, Mars Outpost 7 a tomb of twisted metal. 7,243 dead. Admiral Kim began, her voice strong but heavy with the weight of the numbers. 3 stations completely destroyed, 4 colonies damaged beyond repair, 26 ships lost. The chamber fell completely silent. The Tamak believed us weak, she continued. Their intelligence suggested humans were too fractured to mount an effective defense. They were wrong. She tapped a control, and the displays changed to show Earth's orbital shipyards. Massive vessels took shape under the careful hands of construction drones. For the past decade, we maintained a peacetime fleet. We believed first contact would be peaceful. Admiral Kim's mouth tightened. We were unprepared, but not anymore. The Earth President rose from her seat. Admiral Kim, what are you proposing? Operation Thunderbolt, Kim replied. A complete military mobilization. We activate every dormant shipyard, recall every retired officer, and build a fleet that can not only defend human space, but take the fight to the Tamak. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some voices sounded afraid, others angry, but most were resolute. The cost would be enormous, said the economic director. We would need to shift 30% of global production to military purposes. The cost of doing nothing would be extinction, Kim countered. The debate raged for hours. Old Earth rivalries briefly resurfaced as nations argued about contribution levels and command structures. But as the day wore on, the room's mood shifted. My people on Mars lost everything, said the Martian representative, rising slowly. We vote yes. One by one, the other representatives stood. By evening, Operation Thunderbolt was approved with unanimous support. In a hidden facility beneath the lunar surface, Dr. Taeyang bent over a workbench. Pieces of Tamak technology lay dissected before him. His team of engineers worked around the clock, studying the alien components salvaged from wreckage. Bring up the shield modulation again, he instructed an assistant. A holographic model appeared, showing energy patterns unlike anything in human engineering. Their shields operate on overlapping frequencies, Taeyang explained to Admiral Kim, who stood observing their work. That's why our weapons couldn't penetrate them. But look what happens when we introduce this pattern. He adjusted the simulation. The shield flickered and collapsed. You found their weakness, Admiral Kim said, eyes widening slightly. Better. Taeyang held up a small device no bigger than his palm. We've adapted their shield technology, and we've made improvements. The device hummed to life, projecting a dome of energy around them that shimmered like water. Our version uses less power and covers more area, Taeyang explained, and it can be scaled up to cover an entire battleship. Admiral Kim picked up the device, turning it over in her hands. How soon can we put this into production? Mass production can begin in 2 weeks. Installation on existing ships within a month. For the first time since the attacks, Admiral Kim smiled. Well done, Doctor. Now show me what you've done with their weapon systems. Across the solar system, dormant military facilities roared back to life. On Venus, cloud-top factories that once produced luxury goods now churned out ship components. The rings of Saturn, rich in raw materials, sparkled with the lights of mining operations working at full capacity. Earth itself transformed. Shipyards that had been monuments to a peaceful era now blazed with activity day and night. In orbit, the framework of massive vessels took shape, each larger and more powerful than anything humanity had built before. Captain Su Jin Lee walked the length of her new command, the battle cruiser Indomitable. At 34, she was younger than most captains, but her tactical brilliance had caught Admiral Kim's attention. The main cannon installation is complete, Captain, reported her executive officer as they toured the weapon deck. Firing tests exceed all expectations. Su-Jin nodded, running her hand along the smooth wall. And the shield upgrades. Dr. Tae-young personally oversaw the installation. We have 3 times the protection of any previous vessel. In the command center, Su-Jin examined the crew at their stations. Many were as young as she was. Some younger. This would be their first taste of war. Status report, she ordered, taking her captain's chair. All systems operational. Battle group assembled and awaiting your command. 5 cruisers, 8 destroyers, 12 fighter squadrons. Su-Jin opened a channel to all ships in her battle group. This is Captain Lee. 3 months ago, the Tamak attacked without warning or mercy. They believed we would cower. They believed we would fall. Instead, we have risen. Today, we take the fight to them. She closed the channel and nodded to her navigation officer. Set course for Titan. Our intelligence shows a Tamak supply convoy will pass through that sector in 48 hours. Yes, Captain. Course laid in. Engage. The shadow of Titan provided perfect cover. Captain Su-Jin's battle group powered down all non-essential systems, hiding their energy signatures from Tamak sensors. They're right on schedule, whispered the sensor operator. 6 supply ships with only 2 escorts. On the main view screen, the alien vessels moved in tight formation. They showed no signs of detecting the human ships waiting in ambush. Targeting solutions locked, reported the weapons officer. Su-Jin rose from her chair. This was the moment that would show the Tamak that humanity was not prey but predator. All ships on my mark. She paused, watching the aliens drift closer. Weapons free. Show them what happens when you provoke humanity. The Indomitable surged forward, its massive engines flaring to life. The rest of the battle group followed, emerging from Titan's shadow like avenging angels. The first volley caught the Tamak completely off guard. 2 supply ships erupted in flames before they could even raise shields. The escorts tried to maneuver into defensive positions, but human fighters were already swarming them, weapons blazing with pinpoint accuracy. Their distress signal has been jammed, reported the communications officer. They're blind and alone. On the command deck, Su-Jin directed the battle with calm precision. Cruisers Delta and Echo flanked the remaining supply ships. All fighters focus fire on the port side escort. The battle lasted less than 15 minutes. As Tamak ships burned against the backdrop of Saturn's rings, Su-Jin intercepted their communications. The aliens were shocked. They hadn't expected such a swift and coordinated response. 1 vessel intact, Captain, reported her executive officer. Minimal life signs detected. Bring it aboard, Su-Jin ordered. I want to meet our visitors face to face. In the Indomitable's secure holding bay, a single Tamak survivor was brought before Captain Su-Jin. The alien stood on 4 limbs, its exoskeleton glistening under the harsh lights. Where a human would have a face, the Tamak had compound eyes and vibrating mouthparts. Can you understand me? Su-Jin asked, standing tall before the creature. The Tamak's translator clicked and whirred. Yes, human captain. Why did you attack our colonies? We had established peaceful contact. The alien's limbs shifted in what might have been discomfort. Your species was supposed to be primitive. Our observers reported you were divided, slow to adapt, technologically inferior. You should have done better research, Su-Jin replied coldly. The Tamak's eyes seemed to focus more intently on her. This response was unexpected. The Hive Coordinator will need to reassess. Tell your Hive Coordinator this. What you've seen today is just the beginning. Every human ship destroyed, every human life taken will be answered tenfold. Su-Jin turned to leave, then paused. You misjudged us once. Don't make that mistake again. As the Indomitable set course for Earth, Su-Jin sent a simple message to Admiral Kim. First strike successful. The path to the Tamak homeworld is now open. Captain Su-Jin Lee stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. 6 months had passed since the Tamak attacks on human colonies. 6 months of preparation, of building, of planning. Now, it was time to strike back. Status report, Sujin demanded, her voice steady despite the tension filling the bridge. All systems at full capacity, Captain, replied First Officer J1. The battle group is in position and awaiting your command. Around the Indomitable, hidden in the shadow of Saturn's moon Titan, 12 human warships waited. They had powered down all non-essential systems to avoid detection. In the darkness of space, they were nearly invisible. Enemy convoy approaching, reported the sensor officer. 6 supply vessels with 2 escort ships. They matched the intelligence reports exactly. Sujin nodded. Admiral Kim's information had been correct. The Tamak were creatures of habit, using the same supply routes over and over. Their arrogance would be their downfall. All ships confirm targeting solutions, Sujin ordered. Prepare to engage on my command. The bridge fell silent. Only the soft beeping of equipment broke the quiet. Through the view screen, Saturn's rings glowed in the distance, a beautiful backdrop for what was to come. Sujin watched as the Tamak convoy entered the kill zone. The alien ships moved with precision, their hulls shimmering with that strange oil-slick appearance that marked Tamak technology. They suspected nothing. Weapons officer status. Main cannons charged and locked. Missile tubes loaded and ready. All ships report the same. Captain, boarding party reports they'd secured the intact vessel. J1 announced. They've captured several Tamak officers alive. Bring the highest-ranking one to me, Sujin ordered. 20 minutes later, 2 security officers escorted a Tamak onto the bridge. The alien stood on 4 limbs, its exoskeleton iridescent under the ship's lights. Where a human would have a face, it had compound eyes that caught the light like polished gemstones and clicking mandibles. The security officers had attached a translator device to the alien's thorax. Small but effective restraints bound its 4 arms. Sujin stepped forward, facing the creature directly. The bridge crew watched silently. I am Captain Sujin Lee of the Earth Defense Fleet, she said clearly. You attack our colonies without provocation. Why? The Tamak's mandibles clicked rapidly before the translator converted the sounds. I am Sub-Coordinator Kraz, the alien replied. I will tell you nothing. You don't need to, Sujin said. We've already downloaded your ship's data cores. We know your supply routes, your colony locations, your fleet movements. The alien's compound eyes seemed to flicker with what might have been concern. Your species was supposed to be primitive. It clicked. Our observers reported you were divided, technologically inferior. You should have done better research, Sujin replied coldly. She walked around the alien, studying it from all angles. Did your observers tell you that humans have a unique ability to unite when threatened? Did they tell you that we can advance our technology faster under pressure than any other species you've encountered? The Tamak remained silent. No. Then let me educate you. Sujin continued. 6 months ago, we had no weapons that could penetrate your shields. Today, we destroyed your ships with ease. 6 months ago, our forces were scattered across the solar system. Today, we move as one fleet with one purpose. She leaned closer to the alien. And that purpose is to ensure that the Tamak never threaten humanity again. The alien's posture shifted slightly. The Hive coordinator believed your ship designs indicated primitive thinking. This was an error. A costly one, Sujin agreed. Sub-Coordinator Kraz, you will be treated according to our laws of war. In the meantime, I suggest you consider delivering a message to your Hive coordinator. What message? This attack was just our opening move. We are coming for your worlds next. Unless you want to see what happens when humanity truly goes to war, I suggest your people prepare to negotiate. As the security officers led the alien away, J1 approached Sujin. Do you think they'll negotiate, Captain? Sujin looked out at the viewport, where the remains of the Tamak fleet drifted lifelessly. No, she said quietly. They're too proud. too certain of their superiority. They'll escalate, and we'll be ready when they do. She turned to her communications officer. Send word to Admiral Kim. Operation First Strike is a complete success. We're ready for Phase 2. As the Indomitable set course for Earth, carrying its alien prisoner and the data from the captured ships, Su Jin knew that the war had truly begun. The Tamak had awakened a sleeping giant, and humanity would not rest until justice was done. Admiral Hae-Nul Kim stood silently as the holographic display showed the full extent of Tamak territory. The war room deep beneath Luna's surface was filled with Earth's highest military leaders. 6 months had passed since Captain Su Jin's successful strike at Saturn. Now it was time for the next phase. Their empire is larger than we thought, said General Dong Yun, pointing to clusters of stars that glowed red on the map. At least 12 major colony worlds and 3 times as many outposts. Admiral Kim nodded slowly. And their homeworld. Here, said Intelligence Director Junho, zooming the display to focus on a star system near the edge of the map. Our analysis of captured navigational data confirms it. Heavily defended, of course. The room fell silent as everyone studied the display. The Tamak threat was more significant than anyone had initially believed. What had started as attacks on human outposts now looked like the opening moves of a much larger conflict. We've been operating under a critical misunderstanding, Admiral Kim finally said. We thought the Tamak attacked us because they saw us as weak, but this data suggests something else entirely. She gestured, and the display changed to show intercepted Tamak communications translated into human language. They fear us, she continued. Their attacks weren't acts of bullying but preemptive strikes. They saw our rapid technological development and expansion and decided to eliminate what they perceived as a future threat. How could they fear us? Asked a younger officer. Their technology was far superior. Dr. Tae-young stepped forward from the shadows where he had been quietly observing. In recent months, his work reverse engineering Tamak technology had made him one of the most valuable people in the solar system. Superior, but stagnant, he explained. Look at this analysis of their ship designs. The display changed again, showing comparisons between Tamak vessels captured at different times. No significant improvements in over 50 years, Dr. Tae-young continued. They reached a technological plateau and stopped innovating. Meanwhile, humanity went from basic spaceflight to interplanetary colonization in less than a century. Admiral Kim nodded. They didn't attack us because we were weak. They attacked because they recognized our potential to surpass them. And they were right to be afraid, added General Dong Yun with a grim smile. In just 6 months, we've adapted their own technology and improved upon it. Admiral Kim walked around the holographic display, studying it from all angles. This changes our strategic approach. We're not just defending ourselves against an aggressor. We're facing a species that fundamentally fears what humanity represents, rapid adaptation and growth. She pointed to a sector of space between Earth and the Tamak homeworld. There's something else. This region contains several non-Tamak civilizations according to their data. Some appear to be subjugated client states. Others seem to maintain independence. Director Junho nodded. We found references to something called the Galactic Assembly in their communications. It appears to be some kind of coalition of spacefaring species. Then we're not alone out there, Admiral Kim said softly. And we've just been pulled into a much larger game. The implications were staggering. Humanity had been preparing to fight one alien species. Now they had to consider the existence of many, each with their own agendas and capabilities. We need more information, Admiral Kim decided. Before we continue our offensive, we must understand the larger galactic situation. Dr. Tae-young cleared his throat. I believe I have something that might help. All eyes turned to him. My team has been studying the Tamak communication systems. We've determined that they use a type of quantum entanglement network that spans their territory. With the right equipment, we could tap into it. You're suggesting we spy on their entire empire, Director Junho asked, eyes widening. Not just spy, Dr. Tae-young replied. If we can access their network, we could potentially introduce false information. Control the narrative. The implications were immediately clear to everyone in the room. Such access would give humanity an unprecedented advantage. How soon can this be implemented? Admiral Kim asked. The theoretical framework is sound, Dr. Tae-young answered. But we need more Tamak communication nodes to build a workable interface. Our current captures aren't sufficient. Admiral Kim turned to the tactical display. Then our next target must be a Tamak communication hub. Intelligence suggests there's one at the edge of our solar system, a forward base they established to monitor our activities. She pointed to a location beyond Pluto's orbit. Here, they call it Listening Post Salak. General Dong-hyun studied the location. Heavily defended, according to our scans, it would require a significant force to capture. Not necessarily, said a new voice. All heads turned to see Captain Soo-jin Lee entering the war room. She had been summoned from the Indomitable, but had arrived earlier than expected. Permission to speak, Admiral, Soo-jin requested formally. Admiral Kim nodded. Always, Captain. A frontal assault would be costly, Soo-jin said, approaching the display. But what if we use their own psychology against them? They fear our unpredictability. Let's give them something truly unpredictable. She manipulated the display, highlighting a small asteroid field near the Tamak listening post. My engineers have been developing a stealth system based on Tamak technology, but with modifications that actually make it more effective against their own sensors. We could hide a small strike team in these asteroids, approach the station undetected, and capture it intact. Admiral Kim studied the proposal. It was bold, risky, but potentially game-changing if successful. Who would lead this mission? She asked, though she already knew the answer. I would, Admiral. Soo-jin replied without hesitation. My crew has the most experience engaging Tamak forces, and after what they did to Europa, her voice hardened. We have a personal stake in this. Admiral Kim looked around the room, gauging the reaction of her fellow leaders. She saw determination in their eyes, mixed with a growing understanding of the larger conflict they had been drawn into. Very well, Captain Lee, she decided. Assemble your team. Operation Revelation begins in 72 hours. As the meeting adjourned, Admiral Kim pulled Dr. Tae-young aside. When we access their network, she said quietly, what do you expect we'll find? The scientist's expression was grave. That's what truly concerns me, Admiral. The Tamak seem almost disappointed by our response to their attacks, as if they expected something else from us. What do you mean? In the translated communications, they keep referring to humans as the sleeping giants, or sometimes the forgotten ones. It makes me wonder. He hesitated. Wonder what, Doctor? If perhaps they know something about our species that we've forgotten ourselves. Admiral Kim felt a chill that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. Prepare your equipment, Doctor. Captain Lee will get you access to that communication hub. As they parted ways, Admiral Kim couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was standing on the edge of a revelation that would change their understanding not just of the galaxy, but of themselves. Outside, Earth's shipyards continued their relentless production. The human fleet grew larger each day, more powerful, more advanced. But now their purpose had shifted slightly. It wasn't just about revenge or even defense. It was about discovering the truth. The vast emptiness of space suddenly filled with light. Where there had been nothing but distant stars, there now appeared thousands of ships. The human armada had arrived at the edge of the Tamak home system after a journey of 2 years. On the bridge of the flagship Defiance, Admiral Hae-nul Kim watched as her fleet took formation. The tactical display showed the full might of humanity. Over 4,000 vessels ranging from massive dreadnoughts to nimble fighters. Each ship represented countless hours of labor, the combined will of a species that refused to be victimized. All ships report ready, Admiral, said her communications officer. "The fleet awaits your command." Admiral Kim nodded. Her silver hair was now completely white, the stress of leading humanity's war effort having taken its toll. But her eyes remained sharp, her resolve unbroken. "And the Tamak defenses? They've detected us," reported the sensor officer. "Their orbital platforms are activating. Their fleet is moving to intercept, but they seem disorganized." Kim wasn't surprised. Operation Revelation had been more successful than anyone could have imagined. For the past year, humans had been accessing the Tamak communication network, gathering intelligence, and occasionally feeding false information. The aliens never suspected their most secure channel had been compromised. "On screen," Kim ordered. The main view screen showed the Tamak homeworld. It was beautiful in its way, a blue-green planet with 3 small moons. Around it orbited dozens of defense platforms and several hundred warships. "They're outnumbered 5-1, observed Captain Jae-won, who had been promoted after serving under Captain Soo-jin Lee. "Numbers aren't everything," Kim reminded him. "Their homeworld defenses will be their most advanced. We should expect heavy resistance." She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to the Tamak High Command. All frequencies, all languages." The officer worked his controls. "Channel open, Admiral." Admiral Kim stood straight, her uniform crisp despite the long hours she had worn it. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of every human life lost in this conflict. "Tamak High Command, this is Admiral Hae-Nul Kim of the United Earth Defense Fleet. 2 years ago, your forces attacked our colonies without warning or provocation. You murdered our civilians. You destroyed our outposts." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You struck without cause. We strike with purpose." The bridge fell silent as everyone waited for a response. For nearly a minute, there was nothing. Then, the communications officer straightened. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the planet." "On screen," Kim ordered. The image of the planet was replaced by a Tanak. This one was larger than any they had encountered before, its exoskeleton a deep blue that seemed to absorb light. Where most Tanak had 4 limbs, this one had 6, adorned with what appeared to be ceremonial jewelry. "I am High Coordinator Xaltec of the Tamak Hegemony," the alien said through the translator. "Your presence here is an act of war." Admiral Kim's expression didn't change. "The war began when you attacked Europa Station. We are merely bringing it to its conclusion." The High Coordinator's compound eyes flickered in what the humans had learned was a sign of agitation. "Our attacks were necessary. Our observers reported that human technological development was accelerating beyond safe parameters. You would have eventually threatened our dominance." "So you admit it," Kim said. "You attacked us not because we posed a threat, but because you feared we might someday pose one. Preemptive action is logical when facing a potential existential threat," the High Coordinator replied. "Your species adapts too quickly. You change too rapidly. Such unpredictability cannot be tolerated in an orderly galaxy." Admiral Kim allowed herself a small smile. "And yet here we are. In 2 years, we've matched and exceeded your technology. We've broken your codes, infiltrated your networks, and now we stand at the threshold of your homeworld." She leaned forward slightly. "Your preemptive action failed, High Coordinator. Now you must face the consequences." The alien's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of distress. "What are your demands?" In the war room of the Defiance, Admiral Kim met with her senior staff. The Tamak had requested 6 hours to consider humanity's terms. Kim had granted them 3. "They'll try to stall," said Intelligence Director Jun-ho. "Their deep space communications suggest they're calling for reinforcements from their outer colonies. Those reinforcements won't arrive in time," Captain Soo-jin Lee pointed out. She had been summoned from her command of the Indomitable for this historic moment. "And even if they did, our forces would still outnumber them." Admiral Kim studied the tactical display. "They're afraid, not just of our weapons, but of what we represent. To them, we're an anomaly, a species that advances too quickly to predict or control. Dr. Tai Young, who had become something of an expert on Tamak psychology, nodded. Their entire civilization is built on stability and predictability. Every member knows their place in the hierarchy from birth. They fear change above all else. And yet change is coming to them, whether they wish it or not, Admiral Kim said grimly. The communications officer's voice came over the intercom. Admiral, the Tamak are requesting to send envoys to discuss terms. Kim exchanged glances with her staff. This was sooner than expected. Permission granted. Prepare the conference room. And inform Captain Lee that she will be joining me. Su Jin looked surprised. Admiral, you were there at the beginning, Captain, Kim said. You should be there at the end. The conference room of the Defiance was prepared for the historic meeting. Human security officers lined the walls. In the center, a large table made of actual wood, a rarity in space, gleamed under the lights. Admiral Kim and Captain Su Jin waited as the Tamak delegation was escorted in. The aliens moved with deliberate grace, their joint legs making soft clicking sounds on the floor. The High Coordinator led them, flanked by several smaller Tamak who bore marks of military rank. High Coordinator, Admiral Kim greeted formally. This is Captain Su Jin Lee, commander of the Indomitable and survivor of the Europa Station massacre. The High Coordinator's eyes shifted to Su Jin. There was a moment of tension as predator and prey recognized each other. We have reviewed your terms, the alien said finally. They are not what we expected. What did you expect? Su Jin asked, speaking for the first time. That we would demand your extinction. That we would bombard your worlds as you bombarded ours. It would be the logical conclusion, admitted the High Coordinator. Our studies of other species showed that revenge is a common motivation. Admiral Kim shook her head. Humanity has evolved beyond simple revenge, High Coordinator. We don't seek your extinction. We seek a lasting peace, one based on mutual respect rather than fear. The terms were displayed on a screen that both species could read. The Tamak would withdraw from all human claim systems. They would pay reparations for the colonies destroyed. They would share certain technologies as part of these reparations. And most importantly, they would acknowledge humanity as an equal power in galactic affairs. These terms are acceptable, the High Coordinator said after studying them. Though the technology exchange protocols will require further negotiation. Of course, Admiral Kim agreed. We anticipated that. But the principle must be established. Our species will move forward together, not in competition. As the formal treaty was prepared, Captain Su Jin found herself face to face with one of the Tamak military officers. She recognized the markings on its exoskeleton. This was a fleet commander, possibly one who had participated in the attacks on human colonies. You fought well, the Tamak said unexpectedly. Your tactics at the Battle of Titan were impressive. We had good teachers, Su Jin replied coldly. Your attacks forced us to learn quickly. The aliens' mandibles moved in what might have been discomfort. It was a miscalculation. We believed isolating your species early would prevent future conflicts. Instead, we created exactly what we feared. Su Jin's expression hardened. Remember that lesson well. We don't seek your extinction, she told the Tamak delegation. Only your respect. The galaxy should know. Humanity extends friendship freely, but provoke us at your peril. As the treaty was signed, the human fleet stood vigilant in orbit around the Tamak homeworld, a testament to a species that, when united by adversity, could overcome any challenge the stars might bring. On the return journey to Earth, Admiral Kim stood alone in the observation deck of the Defiance, watching the stars. Captain Su Jin found her there, lost in thought. Something troubles you, Admiral? Su Jin asked. Kim nodded slowly. The Tamak aren't the only species out there, Captain. Their records mention dozens of others, some far more advanced. Are you worried we've drawn attention to ourselves? I'm certain of it, Kim replied. This conflict has announced humanity's presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Some will respect us for our strength. Others will fear us for how quickly we advanced. She turned to face the younger woman. The war is over, Captain Lee, but I fear our challenges are just beginning. Outside the viewports, the vast human fleet traveled in formation, ready for whatever the stars might bring next.